Well, it is 6:37 here on your Thursday. Welcome back to Good Day Dakota. You may be noticing a lot of changes, both now, in the past, and in the future. And those go to our warnings and advisory systems the National Weather Service uses to tell you about weather alerts.
So in this week's WeatherWise, meteorologist Stone Schafer takes a look at what they've been changing and why. Stone?
Yeah, so to start off, I'll be talking about one of the weather alerts that was going to be, or some of the weather alerts are going to be changed here recently. Starting October 1st, some of our cold weather alerts are going to be simplified to make it just a little bit better to understand when we do have cold weather. So the first changes are going to be to our extreme cold watches and warnings. An extreme cold watch and a wind chill watch right now will now be changed starting October 1st to an extreme cold watch. When it comes to our warnings, well, those will both be changed into an extreme cold warning. And then wind chill advisories will now be changed into cold weather advisories. When it comes to freezing advisories, it's more of the same. A hard freeze watch and a freeze watch will now be put together into a freeze watch, and a hard freeze warning and a freeze warning will now be considered a freeze warning. Why are they doing this change, at least for the temperatures? Well, the primary reason for the change is to account for the cold with or without wind, because the fact, the cold weather itself with or without wind can be very dangerous, especially here in North Dakota, where you can get really cold with or without that wind. So again, why are they simplifying it? Well, back in 2014, the National Weather Service collected data from 20 study groups to assess the warnings, watches, and advisory system. And these groups consisted of emergency managers, broadcast media, National Weather Service forecasters, and the public. What they found during these study groups was the general support for a system to replace or enhance the current system using colors, symbols, or plain language. We also saw an agreement that there would be too many watch, weather, and advisory systems or products, and they get too confusing at times. And many of the participants expressed caution towards any major changes without the proper research and testing. So that's what the National Weather Service did. And one of the things they found that really helps simplify that is the language. So right now, our current alert language, if we have a winter weather advisory, we'll start off with winter weather advisory in effect from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. But now they want to make it more plain to tell you what the hazards are going to be. So now at the start of our winter weather advisory, it's going to say snow, hazardous travel from 4 a.m. to 11 a.m. Central Standard Time. So the big thing for plain language is to help you understand what the hazard is going to be, because not everyone knows what a winter weather advisory technically is, and it changes from winter weather advisory to one to another. We look at the timeline for these changes. Again, started back in 2014 and 2016. They did a lot of testing. In 2019, they changed all our marine alerts. In 2021, our flood alerts were changed. And then here in October 1st, 2024 is when our cold temperature changes are going to occur. By 2026, they would like to finalize this so all of our alert systems have a better idea of what they are simpler. When we look at what will change, again, what will remain the same is going to be our watches and our warnings. Again, we need our watches, how you should be prepared for storms that are coming, and, well, our warnings, what should I do? Taking action when we have something like a tornado warning. But again, what will change? Well, the advisories and special weather statements are what's going to change. We're going to have plain language headlines. So again, summarizing an event instead of just giving you the advisory, telling you what you need to prepare for when we do have severe weather rolling your way. So remember to continue to send your questions so I can answer them here weekly on WeatherWise.
And you can do so by heading over to our website at kxnet.com, click on weather, and then WeatherWise.
There you'll see a link that lets you submit your questions. Thank you.